I'm Mr. Chu. In an earlier lesson in 2.03E, we explained how to write equations from a perimeter and an area problem and how to solve them. And then at the end of that video, I challenged you to work a couple problems on your own. I am Mr. Chu, and I call my algebra curriculum Bear Algebra. It's named after my 2-year-old peekapoo that sometimes you'll hear in my videos and sometimes you'll see him because I'll put him on camera. Right now he's sleeping right down here. So if he gets up, I'll put him on here. I'll pick him up and show you what Bear looks like. So we're writing and solving two-step equations. In earlier videos, I explained how to solve two-step equations using inverse operations and checking the answer, and it would take 9 or 10 steps. And I ask you to justify each with the reasons, and you'll do that more in a geometry class. So the challenge practice number 1 said the perimeter of a rectangle is 96 meters. And remember, perimeter is the distance all the way around. The width is 20, so I'll just write that in here. This is 20 meters. So what would this one be? Well, this one would be 20 meters as well, wouldn't it? What's the length? I don't know, and that's the way I make my L. But here's the formula. P equals 2L plus 2W. I write it down here, and now we're going to substitute and solve. I'm going to move it up a little bit and write a little bit smaller because when I was doing my earlier video on this lesson, I was kind of running out of room. So remember, the first thing you do when you have some information like this, you use the substitution property of equality. So I'm going to substitute my value of P, which is 96 meters. I don't have a value of L, so I write that just as 2L. But I have a W, so it's 2 times. And I put parentheses here and put that 96 meters in it. And I'll put parentheses here and I'll put the value of W, which is 20 meters. All right. Now I'm going to simplify it and solve it using my orders of operations. So 96 meters equals 2 times L, or 2 times the length, plus 2 times 20 meters is 40 meters. Now I need to solve this, and I use the inverse operation. The inverse or opposite of adding 40 is subtracting 40. And I would tell my middle school pre-algebra students to cross that out, but you're an algebra student, and in your mind you should know that 40 meters minus 40 meters is 0. And then 2L plus 0 is 2L. And then I'm subtracting 40 from this side because remember, the inverse operation is the subtraction property of equality. So I subtracted 40 meters from both sides. So I had to do the same thing to both sides of the equation to allow it to still be an equation. This crossed out, and then 96 meters minus 40 meters is 56 meters. There's your first step in a two-step equation. Here's your second step. 2 times L. I don't want that. I just want L. I want L to equal something or something to equal L. So I have to do the inverse of multiplying by 2. That is my next inverse operation. So that next inverse operation is division. So it's called the division property of equality. We had the subtraction property of equality, then we simplified. Now we're doing the division property of equality, and now we're going to simplify. And 2 over 2 is 1, and 1 times L is L. 56 meters divided by 2 is 28 meters. So I know this equals 28 meters, and this equals 28 meters. And you said, well, how do we check it? Well, you substitute here. So I have 96 meters equals, with a question mark above it, 2 times my length, which is 28 meters, plus 2 times a W, I'm using my substitution property, 20 meters. Now I'm going to do the order of operations. You do that when you're checking. So you multiply before you add. 2 times 28 is 56 meters. 2 times the 20 is 40 meters. And then 56 meters plus 40 meters is 96 meters. So 96 meters equals 96 meters. Checked. We did it correctly. So now this particular problem ends up being a one-step equation, but we're still writing an equation. So we look to see what we're substituting here. So it tells you I've got a triangle that has an area of 56 yards squared. The base is 8 yards down here. The height, I don't know, find it. So here's my H, I got a question mark here. Remember, the height and the base have to intersect perpendicularly. So it has to be a right angle here, and it does. So now I substitute. So the value of A is 56 yards squared, and that equals 1/2. The base is 8 yards, and the height is, I don't know. All right. So now the first step is simplifying, but it's not an inverse operation step. So that's why this is really called a one-step equation, because of the inverses. So this is 56 yards times yards. That's what yard squared means. And 1/2 of 8 yards is 4 yards. And then we have it times H. Now, when we got to this point right here, what did we do? You do the inverse operation of doing something that's going to allow us to reduce this just to an H. So I'm dividing by whatever you're multiplying by using the division property of equality. But if I divide the right, I have to divide the left. That is the rule. So I got 1 over 1 here, and 1 over 1 here, and 1 times H is H. My yards here have a common factor top and bottom because that's 1 over 1. And I've got 56 divided by 4. So I'm going to have to take somewhere and take my 56 and divide it by 4. Either using a calculator, knowing in your head, being able to do it mentally, or doing long division like this. 4 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. I subtract that. That's 1. I bring my 6 down. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. And when that's 0, it means it terminated. So it equals 14 watt. All I've got left is yards. So I know that this equals 14 yards right here. So this is 14 yards. Now how do we check it? Just like we did here. To check it, we're going to take this equation and plug everything in now. So 56 yards squared, does that equal 1/2 times 8 yards times 14 yards? So now I'm going to simplify the right. 1/2 of 8 yards is 4 yards. And then there's a question mark up above the equal sign. 4 times 14, 4 yards times 14 yards is 56 yards squared. And that equals 56 yards squared. Check. So this is how you write equations and solve them from word problems that have to do with perimeter and area of rectangles and triangles. I am Mr. Chu. Make sure you subscribe when you're in my YouTube channel. Down here is a subscription button. If you'd happen to be watching some of my videos on TikTok or on Instagram or Facebook, go into my profile and it'll show you my YouTube channel, which has all of my videos that you can search and find. So there will be a link that comes up here at the end of the video that will be the original lesson if you need to review. Down here will be a link of just the other equation videos. I'm Mr. Chu. I'm trying to show you an easier way using what I call bare algebra. Subscribe and follow and join me as I show you that algebra is not as hard as it used to be now that you can watch my videos. I'll see you next time in bare algebra.